Hello, fourth grade artist. Mrs. Gordon here. I'm so happy to see you. Um, I loved seeing the stuff that you made for your Bitmoji use. Thank you for those of you who shared pictures, for those of you who completed your form so I could read about how the experience was for you. Today we are starting a 3-week long project where we're going to be learning about line and shape using the architecture, which is a style of art where you design and engineer buildings by this awesome architect named Paul R. Williams. And you're going to be watching this introduction video where I will go through all the slides. Then you'll have a chance to go through all the slides in more detail on your own and watch the videos that are embedded in the slides. And then, and also make some practice drawing some lines and shape with me in the video. And then you'll fill out your Google form for what you learned this week. So, what will we be doing today? We will be reviewing line and shape, what we learned about line and shape already in the years past that you might have been with me, analyzing buildings by Paul Williams, and then you'll think, reflect, and record in your Google form what you learned today. The supplies that you need today are super simple: your handy, trusty art journal and a pencil. So we've been learning about the elements of art since you were in first grade, and you should know that there are 7 elements of art and that artists use these different elements to make their art, and sometimes they use more than one. And the elements of art are line, shape, form, space, color, value, and texture. One of the elements of art, the very first element of art that you learn, is line. So one way that artists can make art is with lines. They can draw lines, paint lines, scratch lines, or collage lines. There are lots of different ways that they can make lines, and there are lots of different lines that they can make. And so these lines are lines that we've learned and should be familiar to you. So then you're going to watch either 1 or 2 videos about lines. You can watch the line song, and you can watch the KQED lines video where they show you art made that focuses using different kinds of lines. Then we'll start thinking about shapes, and I need for you to remember that another way that artists can make art is with shapes. They can draw shapes or paint shapes, or they can cut shapes out and collage shapes. There are lots of different ways that they can create art with shapes, and there are lots of different shapes that they can use and create. And we've learned in art, and we're going to go over this when you do the video and the slides with me where I'm going over your journal. There are basically 2 types of shapes in art. There are geometric shapes, shapes that you know the names of, like circles, squares, and rectangles, and we think of those by saying geometric. And then there are organic shapes, shapes that are found in nature, shapes that you might say, oh, it looks like a heart, or it looks like a flower. Okay, and then you'll have a chance to watch 1 or 2 videos about shape. So you can either watch Robot Art School, or you can watch this very short KQED video where they show you artists who use shape in their art, or you can watch them both. After that, you'll need to grab your pencil and your art journal and go to the next slide. And then I will go through with you how to set up your art journal and then practice some lines and shapes in your art journal. After that, you're going to take a look at more detail this slide about Paul R. Williams. So he lived in Los Angeles, California. He was born in Los Angeles in 1894, and he died there in 1980. He was orphaned when he was only 4 years old and lived with a foster family thereafter. He was the first Black architect to become a member of the American Institute of Architects. He served as an architect in the Navy during World War II, and he helped plan LAX, which is the Los Angeles airport. And this building you're going to see by him, I'm sure you've seen it before in movies. And he was the one who designed that building, who created the idea for that building. So then you're going to watch this video to learn a little bit more about Paul Williams' life. And you're going to look at these buildings designed by Paul Williams. Okay, so this is the building at LAX. This is the one, it looks like a spaceship almost. This is another building that he's designed. And you're gonna think to yourself, what do I see? Okay, and you're gonna think, how do these buildings make me feel? What do they remind me of? I already said this one kind of reminds me of a spaceship. What shapes do you see? And what lines do you see? Like I see this kind of, you might think to yourself if you're super advanced, like, is it more of an organic shape, this shape here? Or is it more of a geometric shape? And then you're going to go back to your journal and you're going to draw some of the lines and the shapes that you see in your journal after looking at Paul Williams. Okay. And at that point, you are done for the day almost, except one more important thing is you have to fill out the think, reflect, and record in your Google form. So you'll think about these questions. What elements of art did I learn about today? What did I learn about the art or the artist? And how did I practice or make my art? So elements of art will be a simple one for you to answer. There'll be a checklist that you can check off the elements of art that you learned today. Then you're going to think to yourself, what did I learn about the art of the artist? And you might decide to focus on the artist. You might say, I learned about Paul Williams. And that would be a good start, but I would want you to elaborate and tell me a little bit more. Like, I learned that the first African-American architect inducted into the American Institute of Architects was Paul Williams, or I learned that Paul Williams helped design the airport in Los Angeles. And then, how did you practice your art? So the question is going to be, how did you make your art? And you would say, and then you think to yourself, did I draw today? Did I paint? Did I sculpt? Did I collage? And then you're going to think, well, what did I use to draw, paint, sculpt, or collage? And what did I draw, paint, sculpt, or collage? So you might say something like, I drew lines with a pencil, or I painted shapes with a paintbrush. Okay, so think about what you did today and answer that question. Then you're going to record your answer here. Next week, we will review what we learned this week. We will also start a drawing of a cityscape inspired by Paul Williams and the Jetsons. Now, if you don't know the Jetsons were a cartoon from when I was a little kid, and your parents probably know about the Jetsons. And some little extra credit homework might be to see if you can find a Jetsons episode on YouTube. And the reason why we're bringing the Jetsons in is Paul Williams' architecture really reminds me of this modern space-aged in the future cartoon called the Jetsons. And we're going to be drawing a cityscape inspired by Paul Williams and the Jetsons. We're going to start that next week. And you will need a pencil, a black marker or crayon. You will also need a big blank piece of thick paper. If you don't have heavy art paper at home, you can always take a grocery store paper bag and cut it up and use the plain side of it. That would work really well. The way to get credit is to fill out the Google form that we talked about. But if you're really proud of what you did, or you want to share what you did, you can always snap a picture of it and share it with me through a Schoology message. Or if your parents have Twitter or Instagram, they can reach out and share it to me that way. Friends and artists, it's been so good to see you, and I just can't wait until we can see each other in person again. I hope you have fun with this week's lesson. Now go start your slideshow and let's make some art, friends.